Hello, everybody. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 5 of the CR Sports Podcast. And it's past the MLB All-Star break in the Major League Baseball season. We're on the second half. And for the first time since 2012, Garrett, the National League has finally won the game.
Yeah, it was a blown save by Baltimore's finest, Felix Bautista. Not too worried though. He can go out and blow his saves in the All Star game. He's saving his real saves for the Orioles. But yeah, Michael, the NL finally got over the hump. And the MLB All Star game actually does have some implication on the World Series, as the team who wins will get to host the first two and then the last three if all those games are necessary. So actually, some implication on like other All Star games, like the Pro Bowl and the NBA All Star game.
Wait, so explain that again. If you win, if which team wins?
So if the AL wins the All Star game, then they will be home first in the World Series,
Oh, right, yeah.
regardless
That's
of
the thing that a
record.
lot of people forget. And then, so whatever team is going to be representing the National League has a big advantage for the first time since 2012.
Yeah.
It's kind of a really weird drought that happened, but regardless, we are on the second half of the season. A lot of teams need to turn it around. A lot of teams need to keep playing the way that they're playing like right now going into the All-Star break. And one of those teams, I'll mention them first, is your Baltimore Orioles. They need to keep up this pace that they are on. It's their best season since I don't even know when, but it's been a long time, Garrett.
Yeah, they started off with a couple wins right out of the All Star break. First 5-2, then 6-5. Comeback fashion today against the Marlins. Cedric Mullins did leave with an injury though. That's worrisome, as it's now his second injury this season. Hopefully he can get back shortly. But it's been the story of the rookies for the Orioles, not only with Adley Rutschman and then Gunnar Henderson, but now calling up Jordan Westburg and Colton Cowser. So a really young team. Maybe they can package those guys into a Shohei Ohtani deal or something.
And the AL East, like we've been mentioning all year, just the beast division that it is. The two last place teams right now that are tied are the Yankees and the Red Sox, which are both teams that are 6 games above 500. And no other division in baseball where those are last place teams. And it really shows the power of this division. And I think it really also shows the implications that the divisional games within the AL East will have in the AL postseason.
Yeah, no, it's definitely because I feel like most of the AL teams just beat up on, especially the AL Central teams. Not only that, but even the AL West and then some of the NL teams. So it's definitely going to come down to the division records. I think that's going to be the separating factor with who wins this division, then who gets the wild card spots. I think the AL East is going to get either two or all three of the wild card spots. I think they're going to end up getting two because I think the
Astros will
Astros.
get in,
I
yeah.
think the Astros are going to win the division. I think the Rangers will get the other wild card.
No, yeah, I agree. I think the Astros will be in there, and either the Astros or the Rangers, to be honest. But it looks like the Rangers right now could take that division the way they're hitting this whole season. If they keep things up, they're another one of those teams. Really good start to the season that they've had, really good halfway point where they are, and another team where when's the last time they've been this good, right? It's been a little bit. And if they can keep that up, keep going on, keep progressing throughout the season, and start to learn how to play playoff baseball because they haven't really been there, then they could have a chance. And on the NL side, I'd say the Arizona Diamondbacks are another one of those teams.
Yeah, I think the Rangers really benefited from the All Star break. The first like 60, 65 games or so, they were playing great baseball. They were one of the best teams, and then the last like 15, 20 games or so right before the All Star break, they really cooled down. And they let the Astros catch up to them, and now the Astros are only within a few games. So I think that the Rangers really just need to regroup at the All Star break. They had five guys starting in the game, sort of just regroup as a team and then get back out in the second half and try to pick up where they left off at the start of the season. But going back to the Diamondbacks, they're now behind the Dodgers in the NL West, which they had been leading for a couple months there after the start of the season. So I think they just need to sort of just regroup and get it back together. I think the Dodgers are going to end up winning this division, but the Diamondbacks certainly have the talent to be a wild card team.
I mean, the Dodgers just have a stacked team where they have guys like Mookie Betts, who's having another career season. What is he at? Like 27 home runs, batting around 300. It's like 280. And Freddie Freeman, who's also having another outstanding year, which we just say year after year with Freddie Freeman. He's always excellent, it seems like, and he's a guy that knows how to win as well. So it's going to be tough for the Diamondbacks to get out of that division with the lead, especially when they've given it up. I think since the Dodgers have taken over, they might not turn around and they just might keep going ahead.
Yeah, Mookie Betts didn't have the best performance in the home run derby, only 11 home runs. That was disappointing.
He's saving himself
But
for the real season.
I don't think it's more him saving himself. I just don't think that's the type of player he is. I know he hits home runs, but I think he's more of a guy who uses it off the pitcher's power. and he's not hitting like skyscraping home runs that are going 450 feet anyway. So he's just not a home run derby type of guy. But all due respect, like I respect him so much for going into the home run derby, and it was his wife saying like, "Why don't you do this? It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You've never done it before." And he's like, "You know what? I'll listen to you. I'll go out there and I'll just have fun."
And we forgot to mention that when we were watching the game, it almost felt like in the National League, it was the Braves versus the American League, which was the Rangers. It was like the majority of the lineup, both Braves and Rangers from the respective divisions.
Yeah, the Rangers had 5 starters. I think the Braves technically only had 3 or 4 in the lineup,
Yeah.
but they had a bunch of backups as
Right.
well. It just goes to show how successful of a start those two teams have had, especially the Braves, who, I mean, I know they lost today, but it just feels like their losses are few and far between.
They're the best team in baseball.
Yeah, they are just. It's pretty obvious they're the best team in baseball. I know the Rays are only their records up there with Atlanta, but I think everyone agrees that Atlanta is just the best team in baseball. And honestly, as long as a team like the Dodgers doesn't get Shohei Ohtani, I don't think the World Series favorites are going to change.
Yeah, I really agree. I think that's what we really have our eye on right now. That's the big news within baseball. Where is Shohei Ohtani going to go if he goes anywhere at this trade deadline? And we've mentioned it before. The big names, the big markets are the teams that are probably going to be in the contention for him. But the Angels, if they don't think they're going to be able to pay him in the offseason, they might as well work up a trade at this trade deadline and get him off the roster, get basically a whole team's farm system because that's what's going to take. And you're also just if you're not going to pay him, what's the point of keeping him on and then not getting any valuable assets for him?
Yeah, I don't think Shohei Ohtani by any means is going to be a Los Angeles Angel at the beginning of next season, so I definitely think trading him is a lot better. I don't think he's going to re-sign in LA, especially with Trout's injury. You can just see the Angels, those two guys sort of have carried the load so far this year. They're just not that talented of a team. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think they're going to make it, even if they do re-sign Ohtani. So I think they should, like you mentioned, they're going to get a pretty massive load back
Whole farm system.
by trading Ohtani. So I think they should do that now instead of just letting him go for nothing in the offseason. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think they're going to be able to find a suitor, and I think Ohtani's going to sign somewhere else. But if you're the Angels GM, you got to be just looking to ship him out. I think
You should be making calls right now already.
Yeah, I definitely. And I think you almost have to settle, even if you don't get a great return for him, because I think you just have to realize that
Something's
he wants
better
to
than
compete,
nothing.
and
Yeah.
that's not happening with the Angels.
And ESPN's Buster Olney reported that his team that he thinks has the highest chances of getting Shohei Ohtani at this trade deadline is the one, the only in my New York Yankees. And I think this would be a little bit unrealistic, and here's why. You already have guys that are making significant amounts of money with Aaron Judge, Garrett Cole, and especially Giancarlo Stanton. Those are three massive contracts that you have. To put a fourth on there, Ohtani, who's going to be a max player, probably going to get paid more than any of them. He's going to be the highest paid player ever in baseball. I don't know if you could do it, and I don't think you trade away almost all your top prospects for a rental. So if the Yankees were to get Ohtani at this trade deadline, I really would expect a big name, like maybe a Stanton, to be gone by the start of next year because you're just gonna have to free up some space.
Yeah, I sure hope he doesn't become a New York Yankee. That would be very disheartening to see. And I love Shohei Ohtani, and I want to root for him, but it'd be hard to do if he put on the Yankee pinstripes. I personally think he's going to end up signing with the Dodgers this offseason. I don't think the Angels are going to be able to find a trade for him that they like before the trade deadline hits towards the end of July. But I do think the Yankees are definitely one of the teams. Whenever a guy like this hits the market, you sort of just throw out the Dodgers, you throw out the Yankees and the Mets. There's just
Maybe
the
the
big
Red
markets,
Sox, too.
yeah, the big markets that have a chance to sign him. I don't think the Red Sox are going to be a real player for Ohtani, but I don't know. I'm interested to just see him get off the Angels because it's kind of like they already ruined Mike Trout's career. I don't want to see him ruin Ohtani's career.
You know, I was just thinking about this. You know how the Texas Rangers, especially last season, were kind of like a big free agency team for the first time in a little bit, getting Jacob deGrom and getting other like big players like Corey Seager. Do you?
I think it was more the year. Yeah, it was the year before.
Yeah, but
when they
just like
signed
they've been-
Simeon and Seager.
Yeah, but they've been
and then,
doing that.
got
And
DeGrom.
now DeGrom in the past offseason. Do you think that there's any chance that Ohtani could possibly be in the direction towards Texas? Because, you know, the GM has seemed to make some surprise moves, and maybe Texas is looking to win now.
I think Texas is definitely looking to win now with the recent signings that they've got adding to their lineup. But they do have some young talent as well. Adolis Garcia headlining that. I don't think the Rangers are going to make a real push for Otani, but they could be one. I would put him in like the top 10 landing spots for Otani, definitely.
I don't like the they could come out of like the black horse candidates. You don't know. You could really see them just coming at the last minute. I feel like another similar situation to tie it in was like the San Diego Padres with Aaron Judge. It was like it was Yankees or Giants, and then the Padres swooped in at the last minute, gave him an offer. I think they could be another one of those teams where you just don't really see them at the whole time, but secretly they could try to be figuring to like maneuver something out.
Yeah, we'll see. They're a team that's Rangers have given a lot of money to a few guys in the last couple off seasons. So how much money they have left, not too sure on that. But I would love to see them get Otani. Speaking of the Padres, though, Michael, they're a very intriguing team. During approaching this trade deadline is no one really knows if they're gonna try to buy and try to become a contending team, maybe make an unexpected wild card run like last year, or if they're gonna sell and just try to sort of rebuild, not quite rebuild, but maybe just trade Manny Machado, trade maybe even like Juan Soto, and just try to bring some young guys back in the mix.
Juan Soto's been the name that's been floating around too, as another big piece that could be moving. And these names that you have like Otani and Soto, they can completely change the whole playoff picture because if you put them on a contender already, and these guys are straight up stars, it's really going to change the whole dynamic of the playoffs. And for the Padres, I just feel like it was kind of a loss. It's kind of a lost season at this point. You had a bunch of stars like Tatis, Machado, and Soto all on the same team. You put them together, and it just what?
Bogarts.
Yeah, Bogarts. He's a little bit older now, but it just hasn't worked out, and it's kind of disappointing. And it goes to show that you can have a whole bunch of stars, but if your lineup's not built the right way, it really doesn't matter. Your GM has to do a great job of building a lineup that suits the whole team, even the players that are in the 8 and 9 holes. That's where you have to figure it out, and those are the players that are really going to help you probably the most.
Yeah, I honestly don't even view this Padres lineup as like top heavy. I think they have guys at the bottom of the lineup that can hit. I just don't think it's really clicked. You see it a lot of times in the NBA when you bring these superstars together.
The Nets.
Sometimes there's just something off. Yeah, the Nets being the main character, but I think the Padres the next month is just huge for them. If they can get over 500, play some winning baseball, I think they're going to go out and try to make a move or two, maybe add to that bullpen depth, maybe pick up a starter. I don't think they're going to try to do much with the lineup. I think they're just going to try to rely on that fixing itself. But on the flip side, if they, have continued their losing record, they struggle over the next couple weeks, I could definitely see guys getting shipped off.
Yeah, definitely. And Soto's been another name, like I said before. Just maybe he could go to another one of those contenders. Padres were kind of viewed like that last year at the trade deadline. That's when Soto was moved. But we're gonna see what happens. And another team, I'd like to talk about in the NL East is the Philadelphia Phillies. They've been playing really good baseball as of late as well. And do you think they're gonna catch fire in the second half of the season again, like they did last year, and maybe propel them into a deep postseason run?
Yeah, I don't think the deep postseason run is going to be part of the equation this year, but I think they're certainly going to make the playoffs, and they're going to play better baseball towards the second half of the season. They had to get healthy to start the year with Bryce Harper coming off the IL, and that's been key for them. And it's really just been their pitchers last year, like Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, who were so dominant to start off this year. They just couldn't get it going. So I think the Phillies are starting to put it together. They've looked a lot better recently, and they're now, I think it's like 7 or 8 games over 500. But they're still in third place behind the Marlins and then behind the Braves. The Braves feel like they're going to clinch the division any day now, just with the way they've been playing. So I don't think, the Marlins are like 16 games over 500, 50 games something, and they're like 10 back of the Braves. So that's out of the picture. I do think they'll catch the Marlins for that second spot, maybe get that 4 or 5 seed in the NL. And they're a team you can't take lightly just because they have the money. It's Philadelphia, and they have the star power as well.
And you saw what they did last year too. I think that any team that has success in the postseason one year, they could really rely on that in future runs. And just to sum up the NL East, let's talk about the Mets. A really just awful and disappointing first half of the season for the New York Mets. And now in the second half, they're going to try to pull it together, I think. But do you think they could be possibly sellers at this trade deadline? I know with Steve Cohen, a guy who's just a billionaire and has tons and tons of money, he could go out there and try to fix it up by just buying people, but I don't know if it's going to happen. And this Mets season has been extremely disappointing, to put it lightly. And the Mets, if they want any chance, are going to have to go on some crazy type of run, almost similar to what the Atlanta Braves did in July. And if they're able to do that, then okay, maybe give them a chance. Oh, July and June, excuse me.
Yeah, I think the Mets should try to find trade suitors for both Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander. I think Justin Verlander is going to be a hot topic at the trade deadline with contenders looking to add him. Maybe he'll go to a team like the Rangers or a team like the Blue Jays, somebody who just needs the veteran presence there with a group of a lot of young guys and somebody who's had playoff success in the past, especially with the Astros the past couple of seasons. So I think they're going to try to ship off a couple of their pitchers. I think they'll try to keep the lineup mostly intact. I think the Mets are realizing this isn't their year, but they realize they still have a lot of talent, so they can't just sell ship either.
A $300 million payroll, and this is the result. I feel like that's a really tough pill to swallow if you're Steve Cohen and you're spending $300 million on a team to not even be in contention right now. So, do you think that has any like factor in his decision if they're sellers at this trade deadline? I feel like that's got to be some type of a factor. We spent $300 million. How can you not string this together and try to make something happen and try to make a run? I feel like that could be a reason why they maybe hold on to the veteran pitchers like Verlander and Scherzer.
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of that just because you spend money on someone they need to play or just because you spend money on
But it
these
happens
guys
though.
that you
But it
need to make it
happens.
work. Yeah, I definitely think it happens in pro sports, and I hate when it happens, and it's frustrating to see. Like, for example, you look at two players, one guy's making 40 million, the other guy's making 2 million. I don't care how much you're paying one guy. Put the guy who's better on the field, on the court, whatever it is. I don't think that you can just try to spend more money and like make up for your 300 million that you've just been spending all over the place. Now I know they've had a couple injuries, especially they just paid Diaz bank and then he's been hurt the whole year. So that doesn't help, and Alonso's missed some time.
But
But
in the grand scheme of things, even if you had Diaz this full year, it really wouldn't have made that big of a difference. Their bats have just been terrible.
yeah, I mean, I think having Diaz would definitely.
A
I think
couple
they'd be
games, a
more
few-
around
yeah.
500, but still. No, I see what you're saying, and I don't. If I'm the Mets GM, I don't really know what I'm doing in this situation. I think you just got to try to carry a similar roster over to next year and hope it goes better and hope you can get healthy. But it's going to be difficult to do. I see if they can get a couple maybe younger pieces by trading guys like Scherzer or Verlander. But
And
it'll
they
be
have
interesting to see.
and they have hope with their young guys like Francisco Alvarez. He's been really good this year, already 17 home runs, and so they got good guys in their farm system. Brett Brady has come up, so that's where I think the Mets are going to go. I think they're going to get rid of some of these older guys that they have on the team, and just kind of move away from this really veteran-based group and go to more of their younger guys coming out of the farm system. And you'll see how that works. The Orioles showed that it's worked really well for them. It's completely transformed their organization. But the Mets were a 101 win team last year, and they basically ran back the same team with honestly another piece in Justin Verlander, and it's just gone way worse.
Yeah, no. And you can't discredit another team in the NL East, which is the Marlins. They're the team sitting in second place above the Phillies. They've got loads of young talent with Jazz Chisholm. Luis Arez, I know the chase for 400 sort of fallen back now. He's been hitless in his last two games. He's down, I think, below 380 now, hovering right around that mark.
So crazy.
But Sandy Alcantara has been pitching better, and this is a really young team. They've just drafted so well, and you've seen the farm talents now raising up, and they've got a lot of promise for the future.
Yeah, and a lot of these teams that have kind of turned it around via their farm system, the Marlins, the Orioles, even the Reds with Ellie De La Cruz coming up, these stars that you're coming up from the minors and the farm system, it's really paying off for a lot of these teams, and that's what makes baseball kind of fun. Even if the teams aren't in contention, the Reds are probably not going to make the playoffs, but it's still really cool to see them having success and selling out the stadium for some games when they've just been awful like the past few years. And the Pirates too. They've been way more exciting.
Yeah, the Pirates got off to a very hot start. They've
They've-
slowed down
yeah, a
recently,
lot,
but there's
yeah.
a lot of promise with teams like the Pirates and especially the Reds. They're like, I would say the three best players in our lineup are all rookies.
Exactly.
So they've got a lot to look forward to there, and then they've got a really young staff. I know Lodolo and Green have been out, but a guy like Andrew Abbott who's came on the scene and he's been dominant. Graham Ashcraft has been a little up and down, but another young arm in that rotation that I think he's part of the plans for the future. They've struggled out of the All-Star break. They're currently being shut out by the Brewers, and they got shut out yesterday. So I think the Brewers are going to win that division, and that's not a two-team bid to the playoffs there. But a lot of promise for teams like that, and even contending teams like the Marlins and the Diamondbacks.
Well, there's a lot to look forward to in the second half of the season after the All-Star break. Follow the MLB season with us. We're going to be here throughout it all. And thank you for listening, everybody. Follow us on Instagram at CR Sports. This is Season 4, Episode 5. Thank you for listening.